For years, Gadget launches followed a predictable rhythm. Annual release cycles, carefully staged announcements, clear timelines that customers, partners, and investors could plan around. When a company said a product was coming, it usually arrived on schedule. That predictability is breaking down. How supply chain uncertainty is changing, Gadget launch schedules isn't about one temporary disruption. It's about a permanent shift in how tech companies manage risk, timing, and expectations in an unpredictable global environment. The most important change is this. Launch dates are no longer driven by readiness alone. They're driven by confidence. In the past, if engineering finished on time, marketing locked in a date, and manufacturing ramped as planned, the product shipped. Today, even when all of those boxes are checked, companies hesitate. Because supply chains no longer behave consistently enough to guarantee a smooth rollout at scale. Semiconductors are the clearest example. While outright shortages have eased, availability remains uneven. Advanced chips, specialized components, and custom silicon are still vulnerable to bottlenecks. A single delayed supplier can ripple through an entire launch. Companies would rather delay than announce a product they can't deliver reliably. That fear has reshaped how launch schedules are built. Instead of committing early to fixed dates, companies now design flexible windows. Internal plans include multiple contingencies. Marketing materials are prepared with adjustable language. Even public announcements are phrased more cautiously. Coming later this year has replaced exact dates. Another way supply chain uncertainty is changing Gadget launch schedules is through staggered rollouts. Instead of launching globally at once, companies increasingly release products in phases, first in one region, then another, sometimes months apart. This approach reduces risk. If supply tightens unexpectedly, companies can prioritize key markets and delay others quietly. From a business perspective, that's safer. From a consumer perspective, it feels like inconsistency. But inconsistency is now preferable to failure. Inventory management has also become more conservative. Before, companies often built large stockpiles ahead of launch to ensure availability. That tied up capital, but reduced the risk of shortages. Today, holding excess inventory is seen as dangerous. Demand forecasts are less reliable. Consumer sentiment shifts quickly. Warehouses full of unsold devices are a nightmare. As a result, companies launch with leaner inventory and scale up only when supply proves stable. That directly affects timing. Launches are pushed back until companies feel confident they can sustain production, not just start it. Another major shift is the decoupling of announcements from shipping. It's now common for companies to unveil products long before they're widely available, or to delay shipping even after launch events. This wasn't always the case. Why does this happen? Because marketing timelines are easier to control than supply chains. Companies still need to signal innovation, reassure investors, and stay visible in competitive markets. Announcements do that. Actual delivery is a separate challenge. Supply chain uncertainty forces companies to separate storytelling from execution. There's also a geopolitical layer influencing launch schedules. Trade policies, tariffs, export controls, and regional regulations can change with little notice. A component that's easy to source one quarter can become restricted the next. That unpredictability makes long-term launch planning risky. Instead of locking in dates a year in advance, companies now wait as long as possible before committing. This shortens planning horizons across the industry. Product design itself has adapted to this reality. Companies are increasingly modularizing devices, allowing components to be swapped if suppliers change. While this adds flexibility, it also adds complexity and testing time, which can delay launches. Designing for supply resilience takes longer than designing for ideal conditions. Supplier diversification is another response, but it comes with trade-offs. Using multiple suppliers reduces risk but complicates coordination and quality control. Aligning timelines across different manufacturing partners is harder, not easier. That complexity often pushes launch schedules out. Consumer demand uncertainty compounds the issue. Economic conditions remain volatile. High-end gadget demand can weaken suddenly. Companies don't want to launch into soft markets with constrained supply and missed revenue targets, so they wait, they watch. They adjust timing based on signals from pre-orders, regional sales data, and broader economic trends. Launch schedules are now market-sensitive in ways they weren't before. Another subtle change is internal decision-making. Launch approvals increasingly involve finance and risk teams, not just product and marketing. Questions about worst-case scenarios carry more weight. What if supply tightens mid-launch? What if costs spike? What if demand shifts? Those questions slow decisions. The result is fewer bold, synchronized launches and more cautious, rolling introductions. Products appear quietly. Availability expands gradually. The big dramatic launch moment becomes less common. For consumers, this creates frustration. Delays feel arbitrary. Availability feels inconsistent. Communication feels vague. But from a company's perspective, this approach minimizes downside in an environment where surprises are costly. How supply chain uncertainty is changing gadget launch schedules ultimately comes down to trust. Companies no longer trust global systems to behave predictably, so they build flexibility into timelines, even if it weakens the customer experience. This shift is unlikely to reverse soon. Supply chains may stabilize, but the lesson has been learned. Predictability can't be assumed. Risk must be priced into timing. In the future, gadget launches will look different. Fewer fixed dates, more rolling releases, more regional variation, more cautious messaging. Not because companies want to disappoint customers, but because in a world where supply chains can change overnight, certainty has become the most expensive feature of all. And until that uncertainty truly disappears, launch schedules will continue to bend around it, reshaping how and when new gadgets reach the market.